Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. So a couple of videos ago I asked you guys if you wanted to see an entire video about 2010s fashion trends, because a lot of us grew up during the 2010s, and also the 2010s was probably one of the worst eras for fashion ever, and I was expecting that to be sort of just like a chilled video where I talk about trends that I hate. But obviously as I was researching I stumbled into a wormhole, and I ended up not only writing this whole script about 2010s fashion trends, but also trend cycles in general, how trend cycles work, and also the sustainability aspect of it all, and basically debating the question of, is following trends really sustainable? And I just want to preface quickly before I start this video that these are trends which I witnessed growing up. In 2010 I was 12 years old, so my entirety of my teenagehood was in the 2010s, and I live in the UK, so these were all trends in the UK, and if I miss anything out please let me know. I want to see a lot of collective cringing in the comments, and also if there are some trends on here which you still like, which I am cringing at, that's cool. Fashion and trends is completely subjective. I'm 22 years old, and as I said earlier, the 2010s were the decade which I grew up in, and although I don't feel the need to explain what the 2010s were like, I realised that a lot of you guys watching are actually a lot younger than me. Someone left a comment saying they were 12 the other day, so I just want to set the scene quickly, talk about a few little pop culture moments just so you guys know what's going on, just so you guys can get the full 2010s feel. This is very overwhelming and I don't know where to start. I'm going to start with music. The most popular musicians at the time were boy bands, and boy bands are still popular now. Obviously we see it mostly with K-pop, but the big bands at that time were bands like One Direction, 5 Seconds of Summer, and then over here in the UK The Wanted was really popular as well, and One Direction and The Wanted actually had Twitter beef. And also the 2010s were the decade of YA novels, and also YA novels being adapted into movies. If you guys don't know what YA is, it is young adult. Young adult novels and movies include things like The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, The Mortal Instruments, Divergent, The Maze Runner, stuff like that. Dystopian stories involving teenagers basically. And I am just going to list off a few iconic or memorable celebrity slash pop culture moments. Lady Gaga wearing a dress made out of raw meat to the VMAs. Beyonce announced her first pregnancy at the VMAs. Miley Cyrus cut all her hair off. Miley Cyrus twerked on Robin Thicke at the VMAs. Miley Cyrus went off the rails when in reality she'd literally just rebranded herself, but it was just a very extreme way of rebranding herself. She's trying to distance herself from her old Disney persona. And I know it may not seem that shocking now, but back in, I'm pretty sure it was like 2012, 2013, this was a big deal. Rihanna and Drake released What's My Name. Rihanna had red hair, which was so iconic. Everyone at that time wanted Rihanna red hair. 50 Shades of Grey was released. Kim Kardashian was married to Chris Humphries for 72 days. Kim Kardashian then married Kanye West. Justin Bieber's protege Carly Rae Jepsen released Call Me Maybe. Solange got into a fight with Jay-Z in an elevator. And there was that viral black and blue slash white and gold dress. And yes, I do see the dress as white and gold, and I know that people are going to try and beef me in the comments. But now that I've set the scene, back onto the topic of fashion trends, I think the whole reason why the 2010s for me is a very unique decade of fashion is because the 2010s were the first full decade where social media really ramped up basically, and social media very heavily affected fashion trends. You know, before 2010 the only social media websites you could really use were Facebook, Twitter, MySpace and Bebo, and I'm sure there were a few others like random chat rooms and stuff like that, but no one had like phones which they could use Wi-Fi on before 2010 really. So if you wanted to use social media you'd have to go home and go on a computer or a laptop, so you would spend really no more than a few hours a day on social media if you even used it. So many people did not use it. So in the 2010s Instagram was founded, Vine was also created around this time, and also smartphones became far more popular, and 3G and 4G was also created. Is that how you say it? So basically you could access internet and social media on your phone whenever you wanted. And also, again related to fashion, the 2010s was the decade that the fashion blog was born. I do believe there were fashion blogs obviously before this, but fashion blogging became a huge thing. I remember I wanted to be a fashion blogger so badly, and people actually began to make an income from blogging about fashion. And then from fashion blogs, fashion influencers were born, and you could find them mostly on Instagram, and nowadays you can still find them on Instagram, but you also find them on TikTok as well. So that really changed the way that trends worked, because instead of consuming sort of your fashion content from a magazine once a week, you could now consume fashion content every single day, which I personally think really changed the fashion industry, and I do think it has encouraged hyper-consumerism. So now let's talk about popular fashion trends in the 2010s and whether I think that they're gonna come back or not. I would love to hear you guys' input on this, if you think I'm right in any of this, if you think I'm wrong. So I think the first thing that we need to address is everyone's obsession with moustaches. I need to know, what hold did moustaches have over so many people in the 2010s? If you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, moustache print on clothing for some reason was really popular. On jumpers, on tops. When I was 13, I had a pair of white leggings which had a pattern of black moustaches on it. And also some people even went as far to get a moustache tattooed on their finger so they could like hold it over their lip and it looked like they had a moustache. Anybody who has this tattoo, please leave a comment, or if you used to have this tattoo and got it covered up or removed. I really want to know if you have one, because I want to know how you feel about having a historical relic tattooed to you. There were also slogan tees which said, "I moustache you a question." I do not ever see this coming back, and if it does, I'm absolutely gonna kick off girls. But for me personally, the most memorable bit of moustache memorabilia had to be those moustache rings. You could get like a single ring with a moustache on it, which I don't think is that bad. It takes a lot for a piece of jewellery to be ugly in my opinion, but the worst ones were the ones which went over like 2 fingers, like the knuckle rings, or they even went over 4. And to be fair, I can kind of understand this just because it's nice to know that your moustache ring can double up as a knuckle duster. Another popular trend was those slogan nerd geek t-shirts and jumpers. They would usually be printed on like a darker, more autumnal fabric, like forest green or navy blue or burgundy. I don't think that these were hideous, I just thought they were really basic. Of course I had one, but now looking back I think it's very basic, and it is just a slogan t-shirt slash jumper, so I wouldn't be surprised if something reminiscent of this came back. And I remember very vividly the person who used to wear the sort of green geek t-shirt all the time was Zoella, and I used to watch Zoella loads when I was younger. And also another thing which Zoella used to wear all the time were black American Apparel disco pants. This is a trend which I look back on with so much fondness. If you guys don't know what disco pants are, they're basically skinny, skin tight, super shiny, very high-waisted trousers. They were popular in the 1980s, I'm pretty sure. You can see them in the film Grease when Sandy gets like her baddie bee makeover and she's wearing those black disco pants. So they have usually come back around every 20-30 years. The biggest supplier of disco pants were American Apparel. I loved them. I wore them between the ages of 14 to 16. I used to wear them to parties. I used to wear them out and about. They were my favourite trousers, and would I wear them now? No, because I don't really like skin tight trousers, but I do think that my outfits were cute. I don't hate them, and I'm sure they're going to come back round someday. American flag clothing. Now I want to know whether this was popular anywhere else or whether this was just a thing in the UK, because I swear not loads of people, like very patriotic people in the US, still wear American flags, and I'm sure there are some American people watching this video offended that I'm calling the American flag a 2010s trend, but you can't ignore ignore facts. The American flag was a 2010s trend. I remember very vividly the American flag on like a pair of shorts, like denim shorts, and it was like washed out. So one side would be stripes and the other side would be stars. I also remember American flag sheer shirts. I remember American flag shoes. Again, they all sort of had that very sort of washed out kind of look. Now, I cannot talk about 2010s trends without talking about the cultural impact that Hollister and Abercrombie and Fitch had on an entire generation of teenagers. And I'm not necessarily talking about the clothing, because the clothing wasn't that groundbreaking. It was either sort of slogan t-shirts or slogan jumpers or tropical hibiscus Hawaiian holiday themed clothing. But in my opinion, it was not the clothes that made these brands so famous. It was the experience of going and shopping at one of their stores. I don't really remember anyone ordering Hollister or Abercrombie and Fitch online. I don't even know whether they had websites. Basically, if they did have websites, not that many people used them, because if you were going to buy Hollister, if you were going to buy Abercrombie and Fitch, you were going to go to the store. So just to paint the picture, if any of you guys have not been to a Hollister or an Abercrombie and Fitch before, they're both very similar. I'm not sure if Hollister's the same, but Abercrombie and Fitch, depending on what store you went to, you'd have to queue up to get in. I remember me and my sister, when I was really young, when I was like 10 years old, me and her queued up to get into the Abercrombie and Fitch store in London, and then as soon as you get into either a Hollister or an Abercrombie store, it is super dim, dark lighting, so you can barely really see anything. The whole store would be made of like dark, soft wood and palm trees, and it would stink of Hollister body spray, and the music would be playing so loudly that you could barely hear what anyone was saying. And I think the stores were like this because they were trying to give off like a holiday tropical kind of vibe. But also, as I was writing this script, I realized they probably made the stores like this because they wanted to disorientate their customers so much that they will leave with something. And also with the Abercrombie stores, you just have to queue up. So if you queued up for half an hour, you're not going to go in there and buy nothing. You are going to make your half an hour wait worth it. And the highlight of Hollister, and again, I'm not sure if Abercrombie did this, but there used to be shirtless male models at the store which you could take a Polaroid picture with. And I'm pretty sure mostly 13-year-old girls would go and take pictures with the topless Hollister models. That was so weird. But what is so interesting about all of this, and especially about Hollister, is that I was actually watching a TikTok the other day, and I'm pretty sure I liked it, but I cannot find it for the life of me. So if anyone knows what TikTok I'm talking about, please leave the username down below so I can credit her in the description. But basically, she was talking about how very recently hibiscus and Hawaiian themed clothing has come back into trend again, and I like this trend. I think the sort of hibiscus Hawaiian sort of diddy little crop tops are super cute. But yes, this girl on TikTok was saying how interesting it is to see everyone's obsession with Hawaiian and hibiscus clothing, because that was Hollister. Hollister had so much Hawaiian and hibiscus stuff, so it's so interesting to see a trend come back around so quickly, because it has only been 10 years. And to be fair, I would probably say at least half of the people who bought Hollister or Abercrombie clothing weren't buying it because they liked the way the clothing looked. They were buying it for the brand. That is why so many of their popular clothing pieces were branded t-shirts or branded hoodies. And it really isn't uncommon for people to buy things just for the sake of the brand. We're seeing it mostly now with street style, things like Supreme, Gucci, and Off-White is what we're seeing now. And back in the early 2000s, people used to do it with Ed Hardy, Von Dutch, and Evisu, and some other popular brands that I remember from the 2010s where people would mostly buy it for the brand and not for the actual look of the clothing was Jack Wills. I'm pretty sure Jack Wills is a British brand, so I'm not sure if it was anywhere else in the world, but Jack Wills was basically kind of like countryside chic. But most people did just buy Jack Wills stuff to say that they had something from Jack Wills. I remember it was really popular when I was 13 years old, and girls in my year would buy their pencil cases which were like £20 or a keyring for like £10 so they could say that they owned something Jack Wills, because Jack Wills was that popular. And I remember when I was 13, their gilets were really popular. Does anyone else own a Jack Wills gilet? I had one. I'm pretty sure a picture of me wearing it was like my BBM display picture for ages. And to be fair, I don't remember any of their clothes actually being ugly. I'm pretty sure all their clothing was pretty nice, and also it was really good quality. I remember, I'm pretty sure Jack Wills was a sustainable brand, but I'm not sure. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So I wouldn't really be surprised if sort of Jack Wills slash British countryside chic came back into fashion. And another very popular brand, and again this is a British brand and I really want to know if anybody else had this, it was Paul's Boutique. I will always look back on Paul's Boutique bags with so much warmth in my heart. Paul's Boutique radiates comfort to me. They basically sold these super tacky, garish bags. It was kind of like Juicy Couture, but like so much more extreme. It was Juicy Couture on steroids. And they also did jackets and coats as well. I remember a really popular jacket was like a hot pink quilted jacket which said Paul's Boutique on the back. I didn't have one of those, but I did have a Paul's Boutique bag, and it was like a brown one with skulls and roses on it. So again, very similar to sort of Ed Hardy kind of look. And like I said earlier, because these bags are very similar to Ed Hardy, they are the opposite of timeless. So they went in and out of trend like that. And as I was researching for this video, I actually went and checked the Paul's Boutique website, and they have had a complete rebrand. They're basically sort of selling like Kate Spade style bags, very sort of business attire, very simple. Although I completely understand the rebrand, I know that they probably would have gone under if they had kept selling those garishly tacky bags which were only trendy for maximum 2 years. It still makes me sad that they completely rebranded. I'm still allowed to mourn the death of tacky Paul's Boutique bags. And whether Paul's Boutique will come back, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if something reminiscent came back, because Paul's Boutique does remind me of Juicy Couture but just way more ugly. And also the sort of skulls and roses themes on some of their bags also remind me of Ed Hardy, which was popular 10 years before then. So I wouldn't be surprised if something very similar came back round again in 10 years. We'll see people selling Paul's Boutique bags on Depop for like 100 quid. I remember the colours mint green and coral were really popular, and also neon colours were really popular in the 2010s, like neon green, neon pink, neon orange, neon yellow, like neon. I'm not talking about bright, I'm talking neon. And I'm not opposed to neon colours. I like a slimy neon green, and these colours were really popular on nail polish. Does anybody else remember the Essie nail polish shade Mint Candy Apple, which was Bethany Motors' favourite nail polish? And speaking of nail polish, does anybody remember Shatter nail polish? I had the Barry M Shatter top coat. Hopefully that never comes back because that was just horrendous. Also, holographic nails. Holographic nails were huge. I wanted a holographic top coat so badly, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't actually think holographic nail polish is that bad. The holographic trend just created a monster, because soon it was holographic bags, and then it was holographic clothing, and then it was it's the day that I saw a pair of holographic brogues, I knew that it was over. The most popular stores in the UK at the time were American Apparel, New Look, River Island and Topshop. Topshop created so many popular trends in the 2010s. The khaki green Parker coat, the medium blue Joni jeans in general, which are like skinny, sort of kind of jegging-y material jeans. I don't think they're ugly, but they're really not my thing, but I'm sure they're gonna come back round again. Another iconic piece of clothing which Topshop made popular were Rihanna t-shirts. Does anyone remember this? Rihanna actually took Topshop to court over this because they didn't ask her permission to use the photo, and she actually won. But I do remember very vividly when I was 13, if I went to a house party or if I went to a party in like a community hall, all of the boys would show up in their finest pair of chinos and a Rihanna t-shirt. Wedge trainers, jeggings, biker boots, gladiator sandals, especially the ones that went all the way up to your knees. If I've missed out any fashion trends from the 2010s, please feel free to leave a comment because I know I've probably missed something. As I said earlier, when I was researching these 2010s trends and reminiscing and also cringing, it got me thinking about trend cycles and how do trend cycles even work? Because something I think all of us realised as we were growing up is that fashion trends inevitably will come back round in sort of 10 to 30 years time. And one example I can think of is I was a teenager in the 2010s and 90s fashion was super popular. High-waisted light wash mum jeans, those little black tennis skirts, and Rachel from Friends was so many people's style icon. And now in the 2020s, Y2K fashion is huge. Low-rise jeans, cowl neck tops, juicy couture tracksuits, Von Dutch. So that was really all of my knowledge on trend cycles, is that inevitably things will come back round. So if I have gotten anything wrong in this video, please feel free to correct me because I'm not a fashion expert. I literally just found this information online. I personally think there's two reasons why fashion trends usually come back round. I think first of all, when they do come back round, they aren't the exact same as how they used to be. There's usually sort of a contemporary twist to it. Either it's made with a better material or it's just made with a more flattering cut. It may be styled a little bit differently. So even though it is reminiscent of the 1980s or the 1990s or the early 2000s, it's just a bit more flattering, it looks a bit nicer, and it looks slightly new and fresh. There are some arguments that because of improvements in technology, that's why we think the clothing looks better, because the clothing is actually better quality. I'm not sure how much I agree with this, just because of the rise of fast fashion, and a majority of popular brands are fast fashion. So I do actually think that since the 90s and the early 2000s, the overall quality of clothing items has actually gone down, but I'm going to elaborate more on this later. And also another reason why I think trends inevitably come back round is because there's a whole new generation of teenagers and young adults who haven't even seen these trends before or haven't really had a chance to try them on because they only saw them growing up when they were really young. So of course a load of young people are going to start wearing low-rise jeans and camisole tops because they've never worn them before. Don't get me wrong, trend cycles have always been a thing for as long as fashion has been around, I'm pretty sure, but I do think in the last 10 years trends and trend cycles have changed so much, and I do think it's because of fashion influencers and fast fashion. If you guys don't know what fast fashion is, it's basically when a clothing company will have all of their garments made in factories overseas in overexploited countries where there are relaxed labour laws and relaxed environmental laws, so they can produce them in a way which is not only very damaging to the environment, but also they can get away with paying their workers next to nothing. And fast fashion companies will release new clothing pieces every single day and produce hundreds and thousands of them in these huge factories. So now there is an abundance of clothing which will never be worn. It will never be used, and it's probably going to end up in a landfill somewhere. I have spoken about fast fashion on my channel before. I spoke about it in my Depop gentrification video, which did get a little bit of controversy. I still do agree with the overall message of that video. I don't think it's right that middle class people bulk buy secondhand clothing and then mark up the price 4 to 5 times. It just doesn't sit right with me. But I don't necessarily agree with everything that I said in that video now, and also I do think there are things which I didn't touch on enough, and one of those things was fast fashion. I am someone who still consumes fast fashion. I am on a journey to being more sustainable with my clothing, and it's genuinely something which is really difficult. I thought that it was going to be easy to make the change from fast fashion to just sustainable stuff, but I did not realise until I was doing my research that a majority of brands, of popular clothing brands, are fast fashion. And when you're googling whether certain brands are fast fashion or not, there's a lot of unclear information and you just don't really know what to believe, which is why I buy a majority of my sustainable clothing from Vinted or even Depop. You can still occasionally find the pretty good cheap thing on there, because I do find it so difficult to work out what brands are fast fashion and what brands aren't. I remember I said in my Depop gentrification video that one of my favourite sustainable brands is Weekday, And then so many of you guys told me that Weekday, their parent company is actually H&M, so technically they're not sustainable, they were just greenwashing. And I actually went through like my clothing round the other day, and I would say that at the moment it's sort of split 50-50, so it's like 50% sustainable slash secondhand slash small business and 50% fast fashion, which for me is a huge improvement because a year ago my wardrobe was 100% fast fashion. House of Sunny is also one of my favourite sustainable brands. It is up there in price, so I don't buy from there very often, but they do have very like beautiful unique pieces. I also love Hazy Made, A Makes, Jacqueline Duffin Clothing, Joycey Shop, We Gang Young, and in the pinned comment I'm actually going to list all of these, and feel free to reply to that pinned comment of any of your favourite small businesses or sustainable clothing brands, because I do think it's so difficult to navigate around. I want this video to at least be somewhat useful, and I do obviously just want to say that I do not judge anybody who shops fast fashion. Obviously I still shop fast fashion. Sustainable clothing brands are usually very expensive, and if you want to buy something for cheap secondhand on either Vinted or Depop, it takes a while to find something good. I'm on Vinted for at least an hour before I find something that I really like. I completely understand that a lot of people do not have the money to shop sustainably, and that is totally okay, especially because a lot of sustainable brands are not size inclusive. Fast fashion has really changed the way that trends work. I'm pretty sure before fast fashion was really a big thing, people used to buy clothes for the summer and clothes for the winter, and clothing stores would release new clothing every season, so autumn, winter, spring, summer. But fast fashion brands release new clothing every single day. They don't release by season. I feel like before fast fashion was a thing, a lot of people used to reuse their clothing very often because there wasn't a constant flow of new clothing. I feel like nowadays trend cycles are just a lot quicker because fast fashion companies are constantly releasing clothing. I feel like rather than it taking years for things to go out of trend, it usually only takes months. Our attention spans are getting shorter, we're getting bored of things so much quicker, and I think because of like hyper consumerism, we like buying new things. It makes us feel good. It makes me feel good anyway. I also do think social media has played a big part of this. Now, I am not personally coming for any fashion influencers, by the way, because I do understand at the end of the day that it is their job, and I do follow a few who I do really like, but it is insane the amount of clothes that they receive or buy. They post new outfits every single day because it's their job, but I think because we're consuming this stuff, it sort of gets into our heads that we need to have new clothing, and we get bored of clothing within a month. And again, I'm not coming after fashion influencers because I understand it's their job, but I would love to see just a bit more of an emphasis on capsule wardrobes and reusing things, you know, styling different clothing in different way to make it seem new and fresh, because I do think that that is something which is really lacking in the fashion influencer industry. And if you guys have any favourite fashion influencers who focus on capsule wardrobes or how to reuse things and rewear things and style things differently, please let me know. So all of these 2010s fashion trends and trend cycles got me thinking about sustainability, and is following trends really sustainable? And the answer is I really don't know. I am someone who follows a lot of trends. I probably say a majority of my wardrobe is trend based, but I still do have a personal style. I don't just blindly follow trends. There are a lot of trends which I really don't like. And again, I really don't understand how fashion trends work, but I'm pretty sure if you see something over and over again, you kind of begin to like it. So you'll see a pair of patchwork jeans, you'll be like, oh, those aren't bad, and then you'll see loads of influencers wearing them and you'll be like, oh, I like those now, I want a pair of them, when you didn't really like them before they were trendy. So this is why I do think that you shouldn't necessarily just blindly follow trends. Again, this is something which I'm working on, because if you buy a clothing garment which you wouldn't have liked unless it was trendy, then you aren't going to like it when it isn't trendy, and it's going to go out of trend within a few months. I bought a pair of those jaded London brown bitty patchwork jeans. I didn't like them before, and then I saw loads of people wearing them with really cool outfits, and I was like, I want a pair. Didn't wear them once, they're in my cupboard somewhere and I'm never gonna wear them. I'm probably gonna give them away. It's fine if you liked that, but it was because I blindly followed a trend that it was just a waste. And this isn't me telling people to not follow trends, especially because a majority of, sorry, I'm looking at my clothing right, it's over there, especially because a majority of my clothing is trend-based. If you are someone who is looking to be a little bit more sustainable with their clothing, sustainability for me is a lot more than just not consuming fast fashion. It's also not buying clothing which you're not gonna wear in 6 months time. So for me, things which have really helped me buy things and not get sick of them within 3 months is thinking to myself, first of all, would I wear this if it wasn't trendy? Would I like this before it wasn't trendy? And also buying things in block colours, black, white. I own a lot of black and white clothing because I know that that is never really going to go out of trend. And of course I still own statement pieces in my wardrobe. I still have this super cute tie-dye halter neck, but I don't fill my wardrobe with statement pieces because I know that I might get sick of them in 6 months. But that's just how I work. I'd love to know what you guys' personal advice is because this is just something which has helped me personally. It might not help everyone. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I know it went on a little bit of a tangent. I'm obviously working on my like sustainability journey and I'd love to know what you guys thought of this. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed and I'll see you guys for a new video soon. Bye!